In this instructional video, we'll be looking at what we call conditional statements, or checking whether a particular condition is true or false and then doing something based on that. And we'll be looking at two types of conditional statements. Firstly, if conditions, and secondly, switch case statements. So firstly, if conditions. Let's start by creating our basic structures that we need all the time. So our setup function and our loop function. And we'll need some variables to perform condition and testing on. So we'll create a variable called a, and we'll give it an initial value. Now it's time for us to actually write our conditional statement. And so basically with an if statement, we're checking if a is equal to or less than or greater than a different value, something else. So we put that conditional part inside our brackets. So we might say if a is greater than 5, and then we have a part of our code where we can do something if that's true, and then a part of our code if we can do something if that's false. For example, if a is greater than 5, let's set a equal to 0. And if a is not greater than 5, let's say a is equal to a plus 1. Now you can probably see what this code is going to do. We start off at a equals 0. We check, is a or is 0 greater than 5? No, it's not. So we run this little bit of code here. A is equal to a plus 1. Now a is equal to 1. Because this is inside our loop, we go back again. Is a, which is now 1, greater than 5? No, it's not. So we go down here and increment a once more. So a is 2, a is 3, a is 4, a is 5. We increment it again. A is now 6. When we do this, is 6 greater than 5? Yes, it is. So here we'll set a equal to 0 and we start the process again. Now we've used greater than here. We can also use less than. If we want to use equals to test if something is equal to something else, we can't use a single equals sign, because a single equals sign is used for assigning a particular value to something, like here. So what we use is a double equals sign. So if a is equal to 5, that's how we test that. If we want to check whether it's not equal to, we use the exclamation mark equals. If a is not equal to 5, set a to 0. Otherwise, a is equal to a plus 1. So that's our basic if condition. Now sometimes we want to have multiple if conditions or multiple conditions that we're testing for. And the way we do it is we put an extra set of brackets like this, and we use either two pipes, which are used for or two and symbols, which are used for and. So we'll do an and example. So if a is not equal to 5, and if a is not equal to 12, let's set a equal to 0. Now we can change this around for or. For example, if we say if a is equal to 5, or if a is equal to 12, then let's set a to 0. So we can have what we call compound if statements, where we've got multiple conditions that we're testing. Another way we can get around this is we can have what we call nested if statements. So we can have an if statement inside an if statement. For example, we have our outer if statement, and if that if statement's true, we go into this inner if statement and we can test another condition inside that if statement. Sometimes we might have lots of if statements that we need to deal with, And so in those cases we might be able to use what we call a switch case statement. For a switch case statement, we need the same variable that we're testing all the time, and we write that at the start. So we say switch and the variable name, which in this case is A. And then we have a whole lot of different cases that A could be. So for the case that A is equal to 1, we can do something there. For the case that A is equal to 2, we can do something else. Maybe set A equal to 5. For the case that A is equal to 3, we do something else again. And for any other case, we put in what's called a default condition. So this will capture everything else. Now it's not quite finished, because what we need to do is tell these case statements, or each of these conditions, when each of them are finished. So what we need to do is we need to put a break command in each one of them. The only one that we don't have to do it for is a default, because that's at the end. If we don't put the break statement in, it'll run the first one, not see a break statement, and then continue on doing the second case statement, and so on until it actually hits a break statement or finishes the switch statement. So that's a common problem to be wary of. So maybe we'll put a little bit of code in there. So in the case that A equals 1, let's set A equal to 2. In the case that A equals 2, let's set A equal to 3. In the case that A equals 3, let's set A equal to 1. And what we'll see here is when we enter here, we set A equal to 2. We exit our switch statement, and at that stage, when we run it again, A will now be equal to 2. When we check that, we set A equal to 3. We run through again. Now case statement 3 will be run, and this will set A equal to 1. So there's two different ways that we can do conditional statements, using if statements or using our switch case statement if we've got lots of if statements to do on the same variable.